The Storm Within is the fifth full length from Saturnus, a Danish melodic death doom metal band who have sort of toyed with the gothic side of melodic death doom over the years and to varying results. I think that they've had a lot of inconsistencies with lineup over the years, and that just means that there are a couple of different there's never been an issue with quality in their work, but every record is very different. And now it might seem like a little bit of a blessing to have an interesting discography, but as we approach the Storm Within, there's no sense of what to expect. So this band has been around since 1991 in various forms, with mostly just the vocalist being like and the bassist being the original members still around, and they're best known probably for Paradise Belongs to You. At least they were until about 2006, where Veronica Decides to Die was sort of their big record at the time. It was pushed pretty well, and I think it did pretty well as far as I remember. Um, but I was into this type of music quite early because of an interest in Catatonia and some of the peaceful kind of era bands, and Paradise Belongs to You was on kind of an also like if you like those starter records, this is maybe a little bit more depth into some of the more somber melodies, some of the lead guitar style, and it was a band that kind of carried people through along with groups like Rapture to keep the melodic death doom thing going, even though a lot of fans had moved on to Opeth and whatnot. Anyway, that's how I see it. Certainly, if you're a fan of My Dying Bride, probably want to check out this band as some additional interest to pad out what that is. In hindsight, their second record, and I think they've worked with Fleming Rasmussen with every release, but Martyr was an interesting step. It was a half step, and I mentioned this record in particular a little bit more in the review. It's because I feel like there's a little bit of that feeling is still there in the band because of extended spoken word passages, a little bit more of a gothic affect in some respect, but also still death doom metal being part of their vernacular. So this record does essentially pick up where kind of from where they've always been, but it's less of it doesn't feel so directly related to like October Tide and sort of what they were doing back with Saturn in Ascension 10 years ago. Anyway, it's a lot of a mess to sort of throw at anyone if you don't know what I'm talking about. So let's get a little bit of an idea with the clip. So the reality is that yes, this is a melodic death doom metal album. It does have a little bit of a gothic affect in the way it presents things, but we can sort of simplify that statement and just say this is a melodic metal record, and it's centered around a lot of hooks and a lot of dramatism. It's very much an album driven by melodrama and a sort of devastated death doom feeling of a certain dark romanticist period in heavy metal in the 90s, and that carries throughout. I think that the last album was so focused on like dual guitar leads and sort of impressive guitar hooks that were big and sort of a little bit dramatic in their presentation. It was almost overbearing, but it was characterizing of their sort of return, basically. So this record does kind of the same thing, but a little bit differently. I think they're more focused on impact and rather not just narrating every bit of the record with lead guitars, although that is sort of their main instrument beyond the vocalist. It's a very rich, very modern sounding record. It is very self-involved and interested in telling a story, which is, you know, uh, close to what they've been doing since about 2000 in terms of lyrics, where it does present a depressive episode and then it tries to work through resolve. I think they get to the resolve a lot quicker on these lyrics, and there's a sort of an uplifting quality to a lot of the actual lyrics as you read them and realize what they're talking about a little bit. So it does feel like a little bit by numbers, I think, compared to some of their last few records, which were a little bit more bespoke in terms of just personality. So this is just a record that's trying to sound like Saturnus as much as possible, while probably leaning into more of their aggressive side a bit more. And that doesn't mean that we're ever really getting a tunnel into death metal riffs, but we are getting more harsh vocals. We are getting more guitar-driven pieces, and there's just a couple of very catchy melodic metal pieces on here, which will probably stick in your ear for a while. I think that it was the calling that really that guitar line was maybe a little bit normal, expected, but it was stuck in my head for a week. So I have to give it to it when a random metal record can sort of do that, and without a lot of direct precedence in their discography. So this was a moderately high recommendation for me. I think that it was easy to enjoy, very easy to listen to album. As with all their records, is an hour long, so that's a little bit of an ask unless you're interested in this type of gothic and melodic death doom metal. And it's a particularly fine result that just verges on sounding just a little bit generic, and I feel like that I'm not sure that they have a signature that has been so consistent over the years that I would recognize this band out of a lineup, like a blind listen. So that's still kind of an issue with me, but it's not like I didn't have a great time listening to this record, and I would still give it a moderately high recommendation. You can read more about that in the written review, and you can go listen to the album now.